Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I'm waking you up this afternoon. We are in the middle of bauma and we are on our third Inside Edge panel here at the Ritchie Bros stand. I've got to say the last two panels have been really interesting as we've brought industry leaders here to talk about the topics that matter, and the final one is something that really matters to everybody in the industry. We've entitled this one, Opportunities and Risks in Equipment Uptime. And folks, I've got some great guests with me on the panel today. I'm Peter Haddock, your host. I'm joined by Paul Muller, who's the Technical Sales Manager for Perkins Engines, and Alex Schussler, who's the founder and president of Smart Equip. So, Paul, I'm going to start with you, yes. Because Perkins make engines.
We do,
and
yeah.
therefore, engines are the heart of every machine. If the engine doesn't work, the machine doesn't work. So, therefore, the uptime of the engine's absolutely critical to how we actually keep the machines and generators and everything else that has your engine in it moving.
Correct.
So, there are a number of different things when it comes to uptime. So points for consideration at the start from your perspective about what people should be looking at when they're analysing uptime from an engine and also a whole machine perspective.
Oh yeah, exactly as you're saying there, Peter, the uptime of the machine, if the machine's not working, it's not earning money, for the customer, there's no point having a machine unless it's actually doing something useful. So, really thinking about using the genuine parts and really thinking about how you can protect your asset and invest in it is what people should be looking at. The sort of trying to cut corners and do that way is not going to give you the best return on your investment. So you've got to really think about how you are making the most of what you've got, how you can keep it running, how you can look after what you put into it. There's a number of things we do on the engine side, the huge amount of sort of test work and validation we do. We do that to make sure we're creating engines that are going to last, going to make machines that keep running. But that goes across not only the engine itself, but the other bits that go around it, the filters, the air cleaners, everything else that's included in there, and it's really, really important for managing the uptime.
And it's what was really interesting. I visited your research and development facility not that long ago, and you actually were using an engine that had been running for a number of years to actually retest it and kind of recertify that it was doing what it said it should be. That's equally important, isn't it, that we have the longevity and that the stage 5 or the stage 4 engines are actually still operating as they should be to the certification that they should be representing, isn't it?
Oh yeah, so we do a huge amount of testing and we have to keep doing retesting and making sure everything stays the same. We put the same amount of effort into the engines that we create for our sort of lesser regulated markets, as well as obviously here in Europe for stage 5. You saw our cold chamber, we locked you in there at minus 36 degrees C, and you found out it was quite chilly.
It was very chilly indeed.
That's doing that sort of testing, making sure the engine can survive under those conditions is what we do. We run tens of thousands of hours. We do testing in the test cells. We put engines in machines ourselves, go off and run the machines ourselves to go and get that real learning. We give machines out to end users and say, yeah, try your best and see what happens with it. And all of that just feeds into making sure we end up with a reliable product that's giving the maximum uptime and therefore giving the customer, what they paid for in the first place.
And it's that uptime, Alex, which is really important from a perspective of a whole fleet, not just an individual machine. So introduce yourself, Alex, to people that don't know you, and tell us a little bit about what Smart Equip does as a business.
Yeah, my name is Alex Schussler. I'm the founder of Smart Equip and also the president of the international operations. The Smart Equip is a global e-commerce platform that's also a service support and parts support platform. We handle, among other our valued partners. Perkins is obviously is on the platform and has been for quite some time. And the idea is for manufacturers to really not just deliver parts and deliver service, but actually deliver uptime. And what I mean by that is by ensuring that you have the right part for the equipment, purchase at the right price and all the typical e-commerce stuff, that it's also instantly available, that your service technicians don't spend a great amount of time looking for the part or analyzing the part. In fact, it is as if Perkins is sending somebody into your organization, looking over your shoulder saying, you need, for that particular manufacturer and that particular engine, you need the following serial number components and so forth, and to really sort of dynamically do that. A lot of people look at this and say this is a transactional benefit, and sure, there's a tremendous transactional benefit as well. but really what it is, it's a reduction in downtime. And that is always, it's getting more out of your service technician, so it's even service technician downtime in a sense, but ultimately at the end, if you look at the pyramid of values, you've got parts cost, you've got service efficiency, but the big contributor is increasing uptime. And what's wonderful about companies like Perkins and others is they use the platform to really go beyond selling you machines, beyond selling you engines, they're now selling you productivity of the asset through that platform.
And this is where we look at the actual performance of the pieces of equipment and then that chain that goes to keeping it moving. Paul, I'll come back to you because, you know, when I was at Perkins Engines again, there was an engine and it looked like it had lots of different pins inside it and wires coming off it because there were sensors everywhere in that engine. Modern engines that we now see in most of the fleets that we see across Europe in particular actually have a lot of sensor and a lot of data that they can give the end user through whatever manufacturer taps into those sensors. Tell me about how that works and how that can monitor the health of a machine.
Yeah, so, you know, as we've moved through the emissions journey, especially in Europe and the US, you know, going through the emissions tiers and now we're on to stage 5, you know, we've had to add more sensors onto the engine to see what's happening with the engine, make sure the after treatment is working as it should, you know, making sure the emissions coming out the tailpipe are meeting the requirements. But that also gives us a huge amount of data to really understand what's going on inside the engine. So we're taking that data, we're using telematic systems and connectivity to actually take it, check the health of the engine, compare it with other engines, see where there's deviations from the sort of the norms, and we can give that information back to the user to say, hey, you know, you might want to have a go and look at this machine, the engine's not working quite as it should, we want to be proactive on it, not wait for things to fail, not wait for things to break, you know, but actually get out and give actionable information to people to go out and do something about it before they have a problem, before they have downtime, so they can schedule things in, get it sorted, and get the machine back up and running straight away.
And what's interesting about that, Alex, is people are seeing trending data. So when we're looking at engine health, we're not just looking at a red alert, something's going to shut it off, it's going to blow, as it were, but we're looking at a trending data that says, look, the machine's performing like this. Over time, that trend line is going to go down slightly, and there's a point in which the preventative maintenance is available to do. And therefore, the parts availability is really important. How are you working with people to actually project what the part needs are to make sure that they're in stock, they're available, and therefore those engineers aren't sat there waiting for it to come through the door?
Yeah, there are two components to that. One is predicting failure, which I think you alluded to.
Yep.
And there the world is moving from static preventive maintenance guidelines to something that's more intelligent. You're measuring vibrations of the engines and so forth, or the units themselves, and you can see, okay, it's time to accelerate, bring forward some of the preventive maintenance stuff, or an item is about to fail, a part is about to fail. So there's more and more in what we call predictive repairs, predictive maintenance, and that's reliant on the performance data of the engine itself, as well as the service envelope, meaning what have the service technicians done, when have they worked on it, and what have the conditions been. So there's a lot of technology that goes into that these days.
And I think what's interesting about that is also, Paul, when we have a problem with an engine, we actually have to go into it, whereas actually when we see an engine that has got that data and we see actually the filters need changing, the basics need doing, we've extended the life as well of the maintenance cycles.
Yep.
Well, that proactive nature is really important, but it's equally important for people to understand how much it costs to maintain an engine at certain parts of its life cycle, isn't it? Tell me a little bit about how that all works.
Well, yeah, you've got to look at the engine over its whole life cycle. You know, the engines last a long time. If you do the right maintenance at the right times, you are really going to extend the lives out of the engine. So, you know, thinking about how we get on there, how we change parts out at the right point, using that trending data, using the predictive data to see when to do those is going to extend that life cycle. And you know, within Perkins, we offer a range of sort of remanufactured and reconditioned parts that even allows customers to keep their engine and their machine lasting longer and longer without having to always buy new parts, and really helping that, you know, thinking about the reuse and recycling as well, which, you know, big sustainability message mixed in with that as well, about how we are sort of reducing our carbon footprint by not sort of having to throw things away. You don't have to keep buying new, you can keep things running. We can update it, we can keep it up to speed with the latest things. You know, and as we do developments in filtration technology and so on, they come onto it, and that even further can extend the life of the engine and the machine.
And what's interesting with the reman engine option is you can literally take out the engine, put another one in, and you're back to work. It's almost like the ultimate smart equipped part that should completely exchange, isn't it?
Yeah, and we have, we obviously keep all the part numbers. We've had the long history. This year is Perkins' 90th birthday.
Wow.
And we look after the engines for the long term. We can take the engine. We know what was in that, put into that machine by the serial number, by the part number, and we can then get the new engine out. We do various ones for our dealer and distributor network of like short block engines that allows them to rebuild things up, and and also complete rebuilds as well. So yeah, really supporting across that, all the different steps and the different points in the life cycle where sometimes they want to replace with new, sometimes they want a factory guaranteed reconditioned part in there as well.
So Alex, things like that are all adding value. Now, what really is the value of getting the uptime right that you're seeing when you talk to customers about this? What are they saying to you? The 1% or the 0.5%? What impact does that make from the downtime to the uptime across their fleet?
So everybody cares about utilization. That means that, as uptime goes up, utilization goes up. And then depending on the commercial use of the asset, if you're a rental fleet, you want to have it out on rent. If you're a contractor, you want to put it on the highest returning jobs and so forth. What you get out of that is what's called the financial utilization. So it's the physical utilization, plus you apply whatever the value is, and you get the financial utilization. What's so wonderful about getting an additional 1%, 2%, 3 percentage points out of it is they come at no additional cost.
Right.
So it's not at all unusual that, for example, a rental fleet, which has been operating at 65% financial utilization, or 55% utilization, meaning they get 55 cents for every euro in fleet value, new fleet value. When they go from that and they go up 1 or 2 or 3 points, that they go from a so-so financial statement to a wow factor because there's no additional cost. Another way to think about this is if you were to go and walk into a hotel today and say, listen, I need a room, I don't have a reservation, and say, here's one, it's 100 euros. That 100 euros goes right to the bottom line, or 99 euros minus wear and tear and so forth, but that goes straight to the bottom line because it's that incremental use that has the highest margin. So it can make a tremendous amount of difference to profit.
And what are people actually doing, and how are they using your system to actually get to that, 1% or 5% more?
Well, I think am I still on?
Yeah.
The key to this is really getting this. The first line of attack is make my service or use the platform so that my service technicians are as productive as possible.
Right.
So we have seen people that have come onto the platform literally free up 40% of their time that they had, and they're now using a wrench in their hand, where previously they were looking for service-related information where they were doing other things, administrative things, search things, and so forth, and they're just being sort of freed up to really focus on repair. When they save 4 hours on a repair, that means that equipment is available an additional 4 hours. So there's a link there. So that's a human factor. The other is then having the parts available, and we're doing more and more in helping companies to increase parts availability for themselves while still keeping stock very lean. And to do that, you need a lot of intelligence on the one hand, but the other thing you do is you have relationships with premier suppliers that tell you, okay, look, we will stock it for you and we will guarantee a certain availability of that part, and when you need it, it'll be there by tomorrow. That costs you more to ship, but compared to the additional value of having that additional day or 2 or 3 days of availability and use, that's a very, very small logistics overhead.
And I think what's really interesting about that is where we're seeing that just-in-time space is actually we're able to ship overnight, the sophistication with that, and it's the sophistication and actually identifying the part. And that's where the two of you need to talk together about the new equipment and get those parts stocked so people can actually identify them. And it's about doing that for the new Stage 5 engines that you're doing. I mean, one of the things that's really interests me is how your engineering team actually works with the actual manufacturer of a product, Paul, to design in efficiency and to make sure that the components are right to match the engine. How much time and effort do you put into that?
Oh, it's a massive amount of the effort that we put in. We spend that's basically all our engineers team's job is to go and maximize the efficiency of things. As we've gone through the emissions tiers, we've constantly worked on increasing the efficiency of the engine as well. You know, Alex was talking about 1 or 2 percentage points. You know, our fuel consumption goes down, our DEF consumption goes down on our latest engines as well. And, you know, all of that is still doing the same job. You're still putting the same fuel in, so it's those incremental points on top that are giving the customers savings for the same amount of money in the first place. And we spend a lot of time, we have a whole team within Peterborough that works with our OEM customers. We get their machines in, we put our engine into their machines. You know, it's our customer machine engineering team, and we look at how we can get the most efficiency out of it, how we can get those percentage points. We can say, well, if you change to this instead of using that one, you know, downsize your engine from a 4 litre down to our 3.6 litre engine. You know, we can give you the same durability, the same performance out of it, but by running that engine with a higher load cycle, you're actually keeping the system happier. You know, running an engine harder is actually in some ways better for it than a lightly loaded engine that sits around not doing much. So by downsizing the engine, you know, it's a lower cost engine, but higher productivity. We're getting the same power out of it, and it, you know, really can help the customers get the most out of their products using our expertise and our application engineering team to really work on that.
And I think, Alex, as we move to stage 5, you know, we've got to retrain the people. You were just talking about the engineers to look after that equipment. It does need to run at a more higher level for a stage 5 engine. And also we need to consider that the little things like the injectors are slightly smaller, and therefore we need to make sure that the parts that we're putting in, the consumables, are right. So we get those particulates out of the engine so they're not coming through. And that's all about specifying the right filters and consumables. And getting that wrong can be an incredibly expensive thing, can't it?
Yes, so it's interesting you say that. There are 2 things happening with all the stage 5 things that we're noticing. One is, as you say, it is absolutely critical to get exactly the right part to the right spec, which in many ways also requires that you really focus on using OEM parts, because that's where you guarantee it. Otherwise, you're risking a great deal. And for all the reasons we mentioned, it's not just expensive in terms of what happens to the equipment, it's expensive in terms of uptime. I mean, that's the risk. That's one of the big risks. But there's another component as well. It used to be, if you go back 15, 20 years, it used to be that if you're, let's say, a rental fleet, and I like the example of rental fleet because it's a very uptime sensitive fleet. That's where the revenue comes. You have to have uptime to have that. It used to be that you would say, okay, the dealers or the manufacturers via the dealers or some other way, it's really their responsibility to do repairs. And that has shifted quite a bit over the last 20 years in the sense that most of the rental fleets do the bulk of their repairs themselves, so the purpose of the manufacturer in this and of the dealer is to support the end user and make them the repair force, because otherwise it takes too long. You can be right there, you're already there, and you do all of this. What's happened with stage 5 is a lot of the repairs are becoming too complicated to do in the end, so that information chain about the right part, the service support and everything else is now splitting dynamically between what does the dealer need to know versus what does the end user need to know. And what dealers need to be able today is also quite a bit more sophisticated for the same reasons. So there is a lot more communication. It may be that part of the repair is being done by the end user, the other part requires that the dealer is there bringing their own parts and specific instruments. So it's not just that the quality of the information has to improve, it's now also a more distributed chain, and you have to really get it right to make sure that downtime is minimized.
Yeah, and that's something that Perkins has got all over the globe, that distributor network. I actually spoke to one of your distributors recently that had worked, and their engineering team had worked with the product manufacturer for a drill rig. And they're getting information and support from your teams, but they're looking at how they can help them fabricate the base of everything, ship that, do the part manufacturing process themselves so that their team can concentrate on the bits that they know about.
Yeah, and building on something that Alex said as well about the right part and the communication change. One of the things we've spent a lot of time doing on all the engines, but it's especially true on the stage 5 ones, is about also not overloading people with information. So, that information chain is great, and you need to have it so the information chain is clear and people know when they need to communicate back with our dealers and distributors, when they need to be called out to do things. So we've made a lot of effort to make our after-treatment systems transparent, so there's no operator intervention needed, because sometimes that intervention can mean that the operator's a bit unsure, they're phoning the dealer and distributors up, the dealer's concentrating on doing that and not going out and actually fixing a problem on another machine. So, that idea of trying to keep communication clear, trying to keep the channels open so when there is a problem that people can get on it straight away is really, really important.
You know, you raise an incredibly important point, which is the information overload side.
Yeah.
If you're an owner of a mixed fleet, you already have dozens, if not hundreds, of different brands and suppliers. Then within that, the engine supplier is typically different from whoever built your equipment. And then every single one of these suppliers has a different way. If you go out and go to their websites or get their books or whatever else it is, they all have different ways of navigating. In fact, they all have different ways of how they handle a serial number. It's not the same with every. They have serial number ranges versus build specs versus whatever else. So there's a lot out there, and if you are required to go out and find it, it's very hard. But what Perkins, for example, is doing, if somebody at a particular rental fleet enters the asset number that they've allocated to that equipment, our system will recognize through integration what is that unit, what's the make, model, what's the serial number, what engine does it have, and we'll use that to allow Perkins to then custom deliver, pinpoint deliver to the user only the information they need for that.
Yeah.
And what we underestimated is the magnitude of the value you bring to the end user just by going from this infinite choice set to that pinpoint information that they need right there without ever having to ask for it, just by checking in the equipment. So that's where a lot of the efficiency, both for service personnel and again, uptime, come from.
And I think that's really interesting because what we see now is that's the use of technology.
Yes.
You know, so where we've seen the engine talking to us, they say their health is there, we've got problems, we need the parts. You're then saying, right, we drill right down to that part. But technology is also coming into play with the use of cameras and smartphones when you're actually at the asset. So again, with the Perkins team can talk to people through into the site's situation to help them with any particular technical problem, can't they now?
Yeah, definitely. We have our app as well, so, you know, the sort of My Perkins app, and you can see if you put your asset in there, if it's connected, if there's problems with it, it tells you what you need to do, tells you what parts you need to go and get, and you know, you can work through the systems to get those. You know, we're looking at how we can also take that technology, so it's using the telematics and connectivity systems we have to look at the different, any error codes that are on there, but not just say, okay, it has this one error code to go and do this, and it has this error code to do that. It says, well, there's two of them. So actually this probably means that it's this issue, and really sort of pinpointing, minimizing the amount of time technicians are having to spend on things by using the technology and using the data to really drive down and pinpoint it to save time, maximize uptime, get things back up and running quickly, because we have this data. And as Alex said, you don't want to overload people with it. You need to get it down and pinpoint it so they can have a laser focus on what they need to do and not be wasting their time reading through books and manuals and everything else.
And of course, I can't stop this conversation without talking about electrification. Perkins, you've just launched a battery system at bauma, and we're seeing product after product after product, Alex, of electric machines. Totally different set of maintenance criteria, totally different set of learning and behaviors. Those machines are coming in, a lot of them have come in for manufacturers like JCB already, but a lot of them are going to come through. What's Smart Equip doing to support the future alternative fuel, and we see hydrogen is here as well, and that sort of maintenance and the cycles and the information that you need to do with that?
You know, because so much of the maintenance management is automated, it is no longer a function of having to retrain somebody as much as it is to have the flags come up at different intervals, to have different parts that need availability and so forth. So we're just, whenever there's any kind of retooling, and the same thing happened with stage 5, and it's happening with hydrogen, it's happening with electric. Whenever there's need to provide a different information set, that's ultimately, that starts with the manufacturer. The training all comes from the manufacturer. And again, if you have a pinpoint delivery system of getting the right information to the right people at the right time relative to the equipment they're working at, they're using the same mechanism. Yep. So it does facilitate training, and it's becoming increasingly important, not just because of the new technology that's out there in the machines, but the one thing that unfortunately hasn't changed is, and it doesn't matter if you're doing this in Europe, if you're doing this in Asia or in North America, there's an increasingly shortage of service technicians. And that's getting harder. So again, the training is important, making them efficient is important, but it's the same platform we've used all along for whenever there's a technology shift.
Fantastic, and of course, Paul, big deal for you guys at bauma with the new power packs. and you're seeing the way in which that's going to be developing over the years. We're also seeing the Stage 5 rolling out now.
Yes.
Your sort of final thoughts and a bit of advice for people when they're getting their new flashy new machines with either battery power or with a Stage 5. What are the things that they need to be doing within their whole organisation, not just repairing and maintenance and looking at health, within their whole organisation about how to sweat these assets and actually get the best value for them when they do have the uptime?
Well, I think, a big thing on it is, when you get the engines in the machines, registering the engine with us, getting the connectivity solutions out there is a big thing to help manage the uptime. Using the genuine parts, coming to our dealer and distributor network when you need help is a massive thing because, we can really make sure you maximize the profitability you're going to get from working that machine. Get those linkages together with our organization and, we can keep it running. Make sure you understand sort of the fuels and the fluids that you should be putting in there because putting the wrong fluids and the wrong fuels into the wrong machines can really, really cost you a huge amount of money. Everyone will have heard stories about people putting gasoline into their diesel cars. You've got to really think about these things. It's just as true with off-highway machines. So, really checking the instructions we have there. We try and make things clear, try and have the serial numbers allow people to really quickly drill down to that information and have good access to it. But we're a global company, we have that global support, we're there if people need help. If people have questions, we want to hear the question. We'd rather be asked a question and maximize the uptime of that machine rather than waiting for a problem and having to come and fix it.
And I can tell you folks, I was at minus 36 degrees at the Perkins engine, and I felt like I was eating a sorbet. I wasn't going to eat it, but that was the fluid that was in their test area. So it looked like a sorbet because it all waxed up, because it wasn't Arctic diesel.
Exactly. That's
and so wherever you are in the world, the conditions change, the heat, or if you're in the Arctic, the cold, and that's going to impact. So those fluids are absolutely essential for what you're talking about there.
Definitely is, and there's more fluids out there, with the Perkins engines, we've got compatibility with a large number of the new sort of low carbon intensity fuels, the HVOs, the sort of up to 20% biofuel as well. And again, it's important, just check the specs, make sure you put in the right fuel in there. Our engines are very capable of running on a wide range of fuels and a wide different types of fuels. But again, making sure you're using the right ones and using reputable fuels that come from good locations is important. Same with oils, DEF fluid, all those other things as well, super important.
Alex, we're at bauma. Guess what, folks? If you're still all awake and you're still with us at bauma, we're at bauma 2022. I've got to say it's the most amazing show I've ever seen. Alex, you've been looking around, you've been talking to people. Why is this show important? And why is this show important for you, but also for Smart Equip and the wider industry?
I actually thought about this while you were speaking on the link, the electronic link. One of the things that's very different from going back, let's say, 2 baumas, is we focus very much on how do we get the right information to the end user, and that's technology. That's a digital platform. How do we get the information there? What we've only barely touched on, but there's a lot of it here, is whether it's through telematics or whether it's through the kind of integration we do with Smart Equip. It's how do we bring a lot of that performance indication or performance information, back to the supplier as well. And you see a lot of manufacturers that are doing that so that it goes full loop, not just to guarantee uptime or improve uptime for here and now, but also to feed it back into the product design level by seeing every single asset and how it performs and putting it into the engineering. So the loop is actually a two-way loop. And there's so many exhibitors today that are emphasizing that part. We're not just doing this to provide you near-term service, we're also doing this because we're on a sort of constant improvement kind of cycle, and you see a lot of that this year.
So Paul, it's been a big moment for you with the Power Pack launch, with Stage 5 launch. What's so important about bauma and being here for your business, but also, for the industry?
Well, bauma is such a huge show. There's so many people here. It's a great opportunity for us to get close to our customers. It's good for us to be able to go and see the machine, see our engines in there. I know you were with one of our customers today talking about that as well. It's a great opportunity to show the new products. It's been 3.5 years since we've been able to do this. There's a lot's changed. Like you said, we've got the batteries on our stand now, so we've got our electrolyte products across 48, 300, and 600 volt nodes. And it's a good opportunity to be able to show that we've been working on it, what we've been doing for the past few years. The wide range of different products here, the wide range of different machines. People are looking at different stuff, and you know, we're here to answer questions, to meet with our customers, either existing ones or future ones that we can work with going forward. We're also here to answer questions. You know, we've got a lot of expertise on the stand, and you know, people have got questions about their existing machines. People can come up and ask us, about the engines. They wondered about something. You know, we're there. We can answer it.
So, folks, thank you very much to my panelists. I give you Paul Muller from Perkins Engines, Alex Schussler from Smart Equip. I've been Peter Haddock. Enjoy the rest of your bauma, everyone. It's a great show. Cheers.